Welcome to Issues, and I'm your host, Richard Smith. As usual, we'd like to remind you to go to our website, issuesbda.com, issuesbda.com. There you will be able to see previous shows, and you'll also be able to email us. This evening, we're very, very excited to have Cratonia Smith with us. She is a real estate agent with Caldwell Bankers. But something that you may want to know about Cratonia. 3 years ago, she was the youngest Bermudian to be called to the bar. Imagine that, the youngest Bermudian to be called to the bar. So, welcome, Cratonia.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Very, very good. Now, let me ask you, an attorney, but now you're in real estate. Why the switch?
Well, it was really a move of opportunity at the time. I was practicing property law, and I really did enjoy it. And I decided to take the real estate exam, and I passed. Oh. And once I had passed, I was in touch with Caldwell Banker, and they offered me a position there. And I decided, because I had been doing law, and I was enjoying it, the property side of it, I thought, why not try the real estate side of it? I've always been into property, enjoyed real estate because of my parents and their familiarity with it. And I thought it would be a bit of a challenge for me because real estate is very multifaceted. It involves a wide range of skills. So I thought, while I'm young, I'm going to give it a try.
One more question concerning law. What motivated you to go into law in the first place?
I love the practice of law, and it was really basically the adequacy of the protection of rights for others that really caused me to go into law. I am very much so aware that there's so many people in our community that aren't aware of their rights, and because of that, there are people that try to take advantage of them in so many situations. So I wanted to be someone that can protect against that, educate people of their rights, and then protect them.
Very good. Now to real estate. The economy right now is quite flat. Are you finding that people are delaying buying a home because of the negative economy we have?
Unfortunately, we have a lot of negative press surrounding the real estate market. So there are quite a few people who are hesitant to buy at this time, but we are in a buyer's market. The prices have come down significantly. So those who take the time to educate themselves correctly about the market are actually jumping to the real estate market and trying to make their purchases now before the market changes and the prices go up. We do have quite a few people across the island who are concerned about their job security, and so that is a factor when making the decision because obviously most people are taking out mortgages. So for those people who don't feel so secure in their jobs, it is a hesitancy there.
Let me ask, as a real estate agent, when someone comes to you, part of your responsibility, is it to kind of review their finances? I know that you're not giving the mortgage, but do you go through with them to see if they would qualify or how easy or how difficult it would be for them to qualify?
No, we don't do that. We direct them to the banks. We have relationships with loan officers at most of the banks, so we try to direct them to somebody that we think that they will be comfortable with. We do have a lot of the forms that they need to familiarize themselves before they get to the bank, and so we can run through those with them so that they know what they have to take to the bank and what questions they should ask, but we don't go through their finances with them. We leave that to the bankers.
Now, what is the average cost of a one-bedroom of a home with a one-bedroom apartment?
It's about, I would say, low 900,000 range, but with that said, there's so many varieties of properties on the market. I know of one that was a 2-apartment dwelling that sold as low as 400,000.
That must have been a fixer-upper.
It was a fixer-upper, yes. But I can say that there was another one that had been renovated, and that one sold at 600,000. So there are some affordable options. Of course, you have the other side of it, where you can get the $1.2, the $1.3 million houses. But it all depends on the condition, the location, and the amenities that come with it.
In fact, that is my very next question. I understand that there's 3 important things about real estate: location, location, and location. Is that still true?
Yes, it's very true. Location is a key factor in real estate. Obviously, in Bermuda, most people flock towards the central parishes for obvious reasons. You're closer to town, you're closer to everything else around the island. But we do find that you have those people who were brought up in Somerset or they were brought up in St. George's, and that's all they want.
Not to detract you, but recently I found out in terms of Somerset that people who live in Somerset, they don't want to go anyplace else. They want
Correct.
to live there. They want to die there. They want to be buried there. They are strictly devoted to Somerset. And I would imagine in any of the other parishes also.
Yes, that is correct. You find clients who refuse to go outside of Warwick or they refuse to go outside of Smith. So location is key, but it's different for different people.
Mm-hmm. Now, if I'm looking to buy and I'm going to contact one of the agency, what specifically would I be looking for in terms of an agent to know that the agent and I would be able to get along and understand one another?
Well, first of all, you want to make sure that you get an agent that is knowledgeable about the market, who's going to be able to give you sound advice. Because what you don't want is to be the real estate market can be very tricky to understand, and so you want somebody that knows what's going on and is able to relay that information to you in a way that you're going to understand. And I think we're all different and we all have different personality traits that we identify with. My advice would be to call a few agents, have some conversations with them, ask a few questions, and as people, we gravitate towards certain people, and so in those conversations, you can get an idea of whether or not that person is genuine, if they're going to have your best interest at heart, if they're knowledgeable, like I said, they have to know what they're talking about, and so you want to make sure that those elements are there. I mean, if you're on the flip side and you're selling a property, I think that you really want to make sure, again, that the agency is someone that has good market knowledge, that they have a very wide reach, because if you're selling, you want to be able to market your property to across the island. So you want an agency that has very wide reach. They have a website that gets lots of hits. They have agents that are available to you. I know at Coldwell Banker, all of our agents are full-time, so that works to the benefit of buyers and it works to the benefit of sellers because we can devote all of our time to helping you get your goals.
Now, if I'm a seller, are there some things that I can do to make my home more attractive to potential buyers?
Yeah, there is. And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend a ton of money to get your house looking good enough to be sold. We find that a lot of people, they like to hold on to things. And so unfortunately, you go into a house and it's quite cluttered. And so what you want to do is make sure that you declutter your house as much as possible because it will show your house in a much better light. It will show that you have storage space. It will show that there's actual space to live in. You can do things like painting the walls on the inside. It's amazing what a fresh coat of paint to the inside of your house can do. It also gives it that new, fresh smell. So when people walk in, they're like, oh, this kind of smells new. So you can do that, and it doesn't cost a ton of money. You can do it yourself. Landscaping outside, making sure your grass is cut. And if you want to paint the exterior as well, that's always a plus.
Okay. Now, again, with the high cost, even though real estate prices have come down, how affordable is it to a young married couple?
It is still tough, I have to be honest, because the banks now have changed their requirements. They're requiring anywhere between 20 and 25% of a down payment. So that can be tough, but with the prices coming down as much as they have, you are a little bit closer. And I would recommend, if I was a young married couple, you can start small just so that you can get your foot in the door with a condo. The condos that we have on the market are actually quite affordable. You can get one as low as $400,000, anywhere between $400,000 and $600,000, which isn't too much of a feat. And in the end, once you get your down payment, your mortgage payment is actually going to equal to rent in that situation. Yeah. So it's a much better financial option, in my opinion, to pay the mortgage versus rent, because obviously you're basically paying yourself because you're going to have your house at the end, whereas rent, you're paying someone else's mortgage.
Now, as a seller, are there any creative financing I can do if the buyer doesn't have all of the down payment? Are there any creative financing I can do as the seller?
Yes, we do have some sellers who offer to help with the down payment if they have some extra cash that they have available, or they hold back some of the purchase price. Whereas, say for instance, the cost of the house is $500,000, and the purchasers only have $400,000 that they're getting from the bank. They'll hold back the remaining $100,000, and you can pay them back in installments, kind of in addition to your mortgage. However, the bank always has to agree to those situations, and they don't always, unfortunately. So it's not something that happens a lot.
Okay. Now, we just have a few minutes left. In terms of real estate as a career, I know that you're in there, but does it have a lot to offer for someone just coming out of university?
Yes, I think it does. Because like I said earlier, real estate is such a multifaceted career. The skills that you have to use to sell real estate are very broad. So, for instance, you have to be marketable. You have to have marketing skills, because obviously you have to market the properties that you have to sell. You have to have administrative skills. You have to have negotiation skills. And you wear so many hats as a real estate agent. People fail to realize that it's a big, what can you call it? It's a very large transaction, and there's so much of it. It's very involved. So we have to hold hat of, we're psychiatrists.
Yeah. But let me ask you, can it be financially rewarding to a person just coming out of university?
Yes, it can. Once you get your sales, the commission rate is 5% on a purchase. It's usually split up, but if you can get, let's say, 6 sales in a year, you get a good salary.
Excellent. Now, we're not advertising Caldwell Bankers or any of the other real estate, but let's suppose someone's watching and they see you. How could they get in touch with you?
They can call me at Caldwell Banker. My direct line is 247-1807, or they can send me an email. My email address is csmith@brcl.bm.
Thank you so much. We have been talking with Cratonia Smith, real estate agent, and she's given her information. So if anyone's looking for a home, please feel free to call her. And also, 3 years ago, she was the youngest Bermudian to be called to the bar. So again, Cratonia, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
And we will be right back. Welcome back. In our first section, we were talking to Cratonia Smith, a real estate agent. Now we're going to take kind of a different view. We have Rhonda Daniels, and she is with the Consumer Affairs Bureau, or just Consumer Affairs.
Consumer Affairs.
And so many times I've listened to the commercials that they have, and they're always very, very interesting. So let's find out a little bit more about the Consumer Affairs. Welcome, Rhonda. So happy to have you.
I'm happy to be here.
Now let me ask you, what are some of the core functions of the Department of Consumer Affairs?
Okay, the core functions are to protect and preserve the rights of consumers, to provide education so that consumers are adequately educated about what their rights and responsibilities are. It's also to ensure that any products that come into Bermuda are safe and that they haven't been recalled. It's also to settle matters between consumers and businesses. Also to make sure that businesses adhere to good business practices and that they're not in violation of the Consumer Protection Act or the Copyright and Design Act. And also to provide any notices or warnings to companies or businesses that may be having a few suspect business practices.
Wow, but none of those are in Bermuda, however. Now, if I have a complaint, or an individual, if they have a complaint, what are the different ways in which someone can file a complaint with Consumer Affairs?
Okay, well, before you file a complaint, we always encourage the consumer to try and work it out with the business first. Don't call us before you've made your complaint known to the company, unless you're calling us on advice on how to deal with the complaint. We will do that, but we won't take your complaint immediately, not unless you've tried to resolve it. But there are several ways you can do it. You can walk in, you can call, you can fax, you can email. You can do it by letter. We still have a few people who send in a complaint by letter.
Now, are there sufficient complaints to keep your office pretty busy?
Oh, whoa. Yes, there are. Lots of complaints. Every day we get complaints. And sometimes we do have quiet days or quiet months, and then other days it's like, okay, what's going on here, because we're getting tons of complaints. But it's enough work. It's 5 hours in the office, and it's 2 enforcement officers, and it's more than enough work for both of us.
You mentioned the term enforcement officer.
Right.
Who are they and what do they? Now, I don't need names, but what do they do?
Well, enforcement officers, basically, I'm one, and my colleague is Mrs. Carlington. Basically, what we do is that we primarily enforce the Consumer Protection Act of 1999 and the Copyright and Design Act of 2004. But outside of that, we also provide advice to consumers who have issues or complaints with businesses or individuals. We also make sure that we monitor businesses to make sure that they are continuing with good business practices. We also assist them in resolving any complaints. And then we also go out and do spot checks sometimes.
Now, as I was doing my research, it seemed to me that the enforcement officer, that he or she really has a lot of power, or can have a lot of power.
Under the Consumer Protection Act.
In fact, I thought this person was a police person.
Actually, the Consumer Protection Act is very powerful. However, the majority of the complaints we get, I would say about 90% of the complaints that we get fall under civil law. And basically, if you don't know what civil law is issues that occur between individuals or organizations or between both parties, and what happens is that they're looking for some form of compensation or some form of redress. Criminal law is different. Criminal law is where the state or the crown, or however you want to put it, actually takes you to court and offers up a punishment such as imprisonment. So we deal with a lot of civil matters, of which the sale of goods is one of them.
Okay, so most of the work is in the civil area, so you don't really get to exercise your police power that much.
No, we don't get to kick down doors or anything like that.
Now, you mentioned earlier Sales of Goods Act. Now,
the Sale of Goods Act.
Specifically, could you give us some more details on that?
This is an act that consumers really should acquaint themselves with, because it's the act that lays down the law on how businesses should conduct business with consumers. Primarily, it states that any product that you buy should be of satisfactory quality. Satisfactory quality means that what a reasonable person would expect for the quality to be. And this quality would affect the appearance, the finish, whether or not it's safe, whether or not it's durable, whether or not it's free from minor defect, whether or not it is as described. So those are the things that are laid out in the Sale of Goods Act. And if the goods that you buy don't conform to contract, i.e. satisfactory quality, then you have the right to make it known to the retailer that you have this issue with the product. And then it also lays out under the Sale of Goods Act what the redress should be, whether it be repair, replacement, or refund.
Now, when someone goes out to purchase a pre-owned car or pre-owned bike, are there some tips that you can give?
You're talking about secondhand products?
Secondhand products.
Oh, yes. And in today's economy, more and more people are buying secondhand products because of the fact they can't afford brand new. The top complaint that we get when it comes to secondhand goods are bikes and cars, primarily cars, then bikes.
Okay, I know I asked this question, but let me interrupt you. Now, if I'm buying a used car or bike not from a business, from an individual, does the Consumer Affairs, can they?
We only offer advice on what you can on what you have to look for. Like for a car, for instance, if you're going to buy a car, first thing you want to know is why are they selling the car. Mm-hmm. You know, a lot of people are leaving the island because they are contract workers and their contracts are up, so they could be selling it for that. But the main reason, why are they selling the car or the bike? The next thing is, how old is the car or the bike? You know, when you buy somebody else's problems, if you buy a car, normally say that's older than 5 years, there are certain things that are going to start to wear and tear. You also need to know the service history and get the service records on the cars, because cars and bikes should be maintained according to the manufacturer's specifications. So if it says that a car should be serviced every 6 months or every 6,000 kilometers, then you need to make sure that the owner of the vehicle has done that. You also need to make sure that the person selling the car or the bike is the actual owner and not, you know, doing something on the side.
Can that actually happen? Can someone sell a car that...
It has happened, but if for instance you're selling it for your elderly mother, your mother no longer wants the car, you have your own car and your mother wants you to sell it for her, then, you know, if she writes a note stating that, you know, she's giving you the power to sell her car, then yes, it can, you know, that's the legal way. But there have been times when people have sold cars that they weren't entitled to sell. The other thing is that people are selling cars where it still has a banknote attached to it.
Yes.
And more that's happening. So we always say to people, make sure that there's clear and free title to it.
How can they
check?
Yes.
They can actually go to the Registrar General and they can actually see, I think you have to pay a fee of about $25, and you search to see whether or not there's a chattel mortgage attached to the bike or the car.
Okay. Now,
there's a few other things regarding buying. Lots more. Always check the exterior and the interior. Take it for a test drive. Listen for any knocking noises, wheezing noises, whining noises, swooshing noises, anything that doesn't sound right. That's what you need to listen for. Try and look underneath the bonnet. Take a mechanic with you if you can. It's very important. Take a mechanic with you. And then before you even commit yourself, ask around about the cars, because some cars, they may have had known troubles with them, such as maybe transmissions going before their time or other issues. So you need to check and make sure that you are buying the car and that the person is giving you the right information. Now, if they haven't given you the right, if you buy the car and they haven't revealed to you that it needs a new crankshaft or it needs a new engine or a head gasket or anything like that, and you find out afterwards that they were well aware of it, you can actually take them to small claims court and actually, or to court, depending on the price, and attempt to get your money back because they deceived you.
Okay. So while the Consumer Affairs may not have any power when it's an individual-to-individual sale, other than advice, the person who feels that he or she has been wronged can take
the matter to court. A lot of people would tend to do it through a lawyer, but with small claims court, if the claim is under $25,000, you can take it to court yourself for a maximum of paying $70. $50 for the court fees and $20 to have the bailiff deliver it.
Okay. Now, of all the goods and services that we have in Bermuda, which are some that you get complaints about?
Okay, the top 5.
Yes. I didn't even know you had a top 5.
Well, we have top 5s because they always change. The top 5 this year is retail. Okay. I mean, the retail, it has to do with customer service, refunds, or faulty products. Next is automotive, and again, that's to do with repairs and parts. And then after that, we have service providers, and that's to do with contractors, plumbers, painters. Then we have trades. We have service providers, which is air conditioning and other services such as utilities. Then we have trades, which is contractors, plumbers, and painters. And last but not least, we have cycles, which has to do with repairs and parts as well. So those are the top 5. Wow. And every year they change. Last year, I think automotive was tops. But the top 5 are always the same. They just switch places every now and then.
Customer service, you mentioned that. How are we as Bermudians or in the retail industry, how are they in terms of customer service? Because really, I hear a lot of negative things.
And you will always hear negative things because if someone has provided you with bad customer service, that person will go out and tell 20 people. Yes. If someone provided you with good customer service, they may tell 5.
And that's true.
And customer service is subjective, okay? You and I could go to the same store and have the same experience, and I will think, oh, that was great customer service. And you'll say, no, customer service was terrible, it was poor. So basically, there are some stores that do give great customer service, and then there are some that still needs to work on it. But in general, I think because of the economy now, more and more stores are realizing that the best way to keep their customers is to make sure that they provide good customer service. And stores will say, well, I do provide good customer service. No, it's your customer who determines whether or not you're providing good customer service, because if they're not satisfied, then they're not going to recommend your business.
Okay. We just have a couple minutes left. Scams. How prevalent are scams in Bermuda? We only have about 65,000 people here, so are scams something that you consumer affairs get involved with?
Actually, the police do it, but we get notifications of it all the time. Scams. There are actual people out there that are so intelligent that rather than use intelligence for legitimate means, they use for illegitimate means. And so you have all different types of scams out there. You have phishing and smishing and multi-level marketing plans, and you have identity theft, and you have kiting, and you have all sorts of stuff. The one that's prevalent in Bermuda, there's two that's prevalent in Bermuda at the moment. The first one is phishing. And phishing is where someone sends you an email pretending that it's an email from your bank or some institution that you may be doing business with, and they will make it look as if it's an alert. Like, for instance, here recently, our local banks, HSBC, Butterfield, and Capital G, have all had emails sent. Emails were sent to the customer. Yes, and it's telling you about security, that your account has been suspended.
You know, but one of the things, I don't know how intelligent people could get fooled by some of these. I see it and it says delete.
Right, just delete it. Yeah, exactly, because they're telling you that your account's been suspended and you need to do this right now. And from the moment you open up that email and you click on it, there's something going behind the scenes where they're busy trying to get your money, and before you realize it, thousands of dollars. They're not going to be successful with me because I never have thousands of dollars in my account. Would like to, but thousands of dollars are gone before you know it. Sometimes if you let the bank know immediately, they may be able to get it back for you. But consumers, when they do that, they want to hold the banks accountable. But there's so much out there that's saying, that's warning you against these emails that, most times it's basically the consumer is out of pocket for this money. The other one is the multi-level marketing plan. Anything.
And our listeners and viewers will have to call you to find that out.
Okay.
We're all out of time.
Sure.
We've had Rhonda Daniels with us, and she's with the Consumer Affairs. And Rhonda, we thank you so very much for being with us.
Sure.
And we will see you next time on Issues.